Hello there, you're watching the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. It's time to see what's making the headlines with the PR consultant Alex Dean and the Guardian columnist Zoe Williams. They'll be with us from now until just before midnight. So let's see what is on some of those front pages. Well, President Trump's latest peace plan for Ukraine is top story in The Times, which says Kyiv has been told by Washington to surrender land to Russia or lose the support of the USA. The Financial Times highlights the fears of the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, over what his country might be forced to concede to Russia. While Washington's increasing pressure on Ukraine to accept the plan is seen by the Mail as Trump turning the screw. After the jailing of Reform UK's former leader in Wales, Nathan Gill, for taking bribes to make pro-Russian statements to the media and the European Parliament, the Mirror leads with the headline, Farage's pal betrays Britain. The Guardian says Prime Minister Keir Starmer is pressing national leader Nigel Farage to root out any other links to Moscow within the party. But despite all of that, The Telegraph has a poll which suggests that if an election was called tomorrow, Reform would score a huge victory with the Conservatives reduced to just 14 MPs. Well, with the budget just days away now, The Eye says Labour appears to be losing control of its MPs over issues such as help for hard-up people to cope with the cost of living. The Express says police officers forced to leave the job after being injured in the line of duty may finally be recognised with a special medal. The Sun claims an exclusive with news that Sarah Ferguson is considering a six-figure offer for a tell-all TV interview over the scandal involving Jeffrey Epstein and links to her ex-husband, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. While the Star leads with news of a boss who apparently ordered his staff to take time off at Christmas to see their kids' nativity plays and other events at school. Nice boss. And welcome then to Alex Dean and Zoe Williams. Great to have you here. Lots of stories in the papers. A lot of the front pages obviously focusing on this deal now over Ukraine. Let's start with The Times, which highlights, I guess, the main angle, which is surrender land or lose U.S. support. Zoe, if we can start with you. I mean, that's one of the issues that, of course, Zelensky says will cost the country its dignity.
Well, not least because some of the land that they want Zelensky to surrender, they haven't even lost. They've never lost control over. So it's not even a case of really surrendering. It's more a case of just giving significant parcels of Ukrainian land to Russia. Now, that will be the thing which is most painful, I would think, and most striking in the 28-point plan. But so much of it, critically, Ukraine has had no voice in this document. So the idea, and the idea that America and Russia could, between them, stitch up a deal which didn't reference Ukraine's interests or talk to them at all, is sort of a statement of intent before you even get to any of the points. That would be, I think, where Zelensky would be talking about dignity. It's not, it's not a treaty if one of the parties isn't in it.
And Alex, I mean, it's cut out Ukraine, it's cut out the whole of Europe, the EU and us.
Yeah, and I think in the sidelines of the G20, we'll see discussions between the UK, France, Germany on how to respond. And it is clear, I mean, you could say this at almost any point in the last few years, Zelensky is in an appalling position because he doesn't want, in his words, to turn off his relationship with a key ally. So how to, in Mark Stone's words in the report that we saw just before we came on air, how do you say yes, but instead of no, and find a way to carry on the conversation beyond just accepting terms on this deal? It does seem to me that President Zelensky saying that their dignity is at stake is choosing rightly to try to make an emotional appeal to allies other than the United States who are being pretty quiet at the moment.
And, Russia didn't get everything they wanted because in kind of Russian militaristic channels, they're extremely angry. So what it looks most like is Trump thinking of himself as this decisive, peacemaker who, with his supreme skills, can come in and solve an intractable war that nobody else was able to solve.
It does feel like that. It does feel like he's just carving it up like a normal deal. You push that side really hard, then you push that side really hard. But this isn't a real estate matter, right? And there's no equality of right between the parties. It's just a question of money between what the outcome is. Russia invaded Ukraine in an entirely unjustified fashion in a war of aggression. And it's not, the parties aren't equal in that. Indeed, one of them's meant to be your ally.
Yeah, that's...
You know, furthermore, there doesn't seem to be any... The kind of consideration of the rest of Europe and Europe's interests is in that bizarre little paragraph about Russia promising
Let me
not
just
to invade
pull up, I mean, the way
else.
that the Daily Mail phrases what Trump has been doing is Ukraine, front page of the Daily Mail, Trump turns the screw. Now, Trump also wants all of this to be signed, sealed and delivered by Thursday, which is Thanksgiving, which kind of brings back the echoes of that White House press conference where I think J.D. Vance was accusing Zelensky of not being grateful enough, of not saying thank you. I don't know if that's a coincidence, but that's Thanksgiving on Thursday. So I guess the question is now whether there could be any kind of negotiation or whether actually it's a done deal. I mean, there could still be scope for some...
Sorry, that actually I only just got what you were saying.
About the Thanksgiving.
You can't present a country with a list of 28 conditions and just expect them to do an up or down, yes or no on it. There has to be room for Ukraine to participate in this before it's decided. After all, to Zoe's point, parts of the country that is supposedly being given away here, Ukraine has valiantly defended for the entirety of the war and not lost.
Yeah. And it's interesting in the Mail piece that they stress in paragraph 3, so they've clearly kind of prioritised it, that America stands to gain significantly financially. A lot of the land that Russia would get is the rare earth metal territory. Trump wants US deals with that territory. I mean, the Mail is pretty close. The Times reports it quite baldly, but the Mail is pretty clearly picking a side here and saying, and that side is Ukraine's, I would think.
Let's just look at the FT weekend. Again, they have that word, Ukraine deal risks loss of dignity or US support, Zelensky says.
Yeah.
Now, like we've been saying at the G20 in South Africa, a lot of the European leaders there are meeting. Interestingly, Trump isn't there. He boycotted it because it's in South Africa. What should Keir Starmer do at this point?
Well, he should pick up on what President Trump said to Fox News, which is that the deadline can be extended. And if you can extend the deadline and have more time to talk, then potentially European powers can play some role in seeking to ameliorate what is plainly on the face of it now a very bad deal for Ukraine. I mean, the response from the Americans will be twofold, I think. The first will be, well, if you don't like it, you can carry on fighting, which is what President Trump said in the White House. The second will be, yeah, the thing that's ultimately in your interest, Europe, is for there to be peace. So if we can bring that about, your quibbling concerns about all the other stuff can go away, can't they? And some of our leaders, I'm afraid, have been extremely quiet. They were very, very strong in their vocal support for Ukraine early on in the conflict, but as it's ground on, they've gone quieter and quieter.
Speaking of which, though, we have actually just got a line from Keir Starmer at the G20 summit. He's saying today Ukraine's friends and partners will meet in the margins of the G20 summit to discuss how we can secure a full ceasefire and create space for meaningful peace negotiations. So, I mean, we knew that, but now it's coming officially.
Yeah, and I think it was expected, because if you think about it from Europe's point of view, it's not just that promise that Russia won't invade anybody else that feels so weak and almost invites you to imagine a world in which Russia goes against that. The consequences of accepting gains from a war of aggression are really fundamental, and you're building a different world order. Yeah. You're building a world where expansionism and war waging pays, and that is, like anything, like paying a terrorist, like that really is dangerous for Europe in a way that Trump either hasn't considered or just doesn't care to consider.
And the influence of Russia is in another story that's also on a lot of the front pages, a domestic news story. Let's start with The Guardian. The Prime Minister urges Farage to root out reform links to Russia. Now, this is linked to the story of Nathan Gill, former reform leader in Wales, who was jailed for more than 10 years for accepting bribes from Russia. So obviously, hugely damaging to him, to reform in many ways, but also very worrying in general.
Nathan Gill was elected initially as a UKIP MEP, and the convictions, the offences to which he pleaded guilty relate to his time in the European Parliament when he took bribes. We now pleaded guilty, he did. He took bribes to be a mouthpiece for Russia and their interests. It's amazing to me, if you think about it, that he wasn't actually charged with treason, because it seems to me that's the nub of what he did. But one might say they might have run into the same problems in prosecuting it that's led to the recent collapse trial, where Britain was unwilling to say explicitly that China was an enemy.
One.
Yeah, so if the same sort of issues about was it treason, we're not at war with Russia and so forth. So it's easier to convict someone on bribery. He got a very stiff sentence, especially on a guilty plea, but it should be harsh. It should be harsh to people who demean their public office by taking money to do things in the interest of a foreign power.
So forgive me, before coming to you, just to look at the Mirror, what they call it, Farage's pal betrays Britain, front page of the Mirror. So obviously very strong. And again, it's about betraying the country.
So hang on a sec. What's the tariff on bribery? 10 must be the maximum tariff, right? They can't have made up a special...
He pleaded guilty. No, my point is he pleaded guilty to a series of offences, but they could equally have charged him, in my view, with treason. But of course, 10 plus years on a guilty plea. I mean, the maximum for Section 20 grievous bodily harm is 5 years. So he's got a long period in prison. Imran Khan, who pleaded guilty to who was convicted of sexual assault of a child, former Member of Parliament, got 18 months, right? So 10 years is a long sentence, but my point is it should be, right? You committed a terrible act, and it does seem to me he could equally have been prosecuted for treason.
It's funny, isn't it? Because when they're reading the judge's ruling, she talks about how he's kind of brought democracy into disrepute. And that hadn't actually occurred to me, because I think reform generally bring democracy into disrepute. But no, I mean...
No one's suggesting that they didn't win the elections they've won.
No, I know, exactly. But, you know, because they themselves are so trenchant on so many... on kind of how rotten all the systems are, one forgets.
I worry that we exhaust. I genuinely worry we run the risk of exhausting rhetoric. And when people say those things about political parties that are doing well in the polls and just have policies you don't like, then you run out of things to say about someone like this, who is treasonous.
No,
right?
I mean,
I
think treason is bad. But I mean, also the other thing it brings up is that with this kind of hybrid warfare, because it is hybrid warfare from Russia to try and corrupt our officials. It's pretty cheap, isn't it? I mean, 40 grand.
But so do you think that there should be further investigations into this case and seeing where it leads?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I
think it's inevitable. He involved other members of the European Parliament in what he was doing. Took them on trips, got them to say things to the media. So even just in his case. But I think that across the political spectrum, people will be looking for where the influence of foreign actors is playing a part in our politics.
Do you agree?
I mean, I do. And I do also think that this is kind of hybrid warfare does demand a new kind of response. We still talk very much about how national defence is all in terms of weapons, all in terms of deterrence, all in terms of these very old-fashioned responses to old kinds of war. But actually, when people are, you know, manipulating your public with bot farms and corrupting your officials with pretty small amounts of money, then you're in a new world.
It's really interesting. I think if you asked the leaders privately of the political parties tonight, are you sure none of this happened in your party? None of them could say, I'm absolutely certain.
Pretty sobering. Alex, Zoe, stay with us. Coming up in next week's budget, a last throw of the dice for Chancellor Rachel Reeves. The Times thinks so. We'll discuss that next.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
The judge made it very clear that she could see no justifiable reason why Sakulas wasn't here facing British justice.
I promised I would get him justice.
Sky News, get the full story first.
It's legal to let go.
Set the speed and take the hands off. I'm Lisa Dowd and I'm Sky's Midlands correspondent.
preparing the ground to raise taxes.
The budget, I've got to do the things that I think are right.
There are tax rises coming down the track.
You can't rule out further tax rises.
It's exactly what she's going to have to do.
She'll be talking about that when it comes to the budget.
We'll be talking everything money as the Chancellor reveals what's in her budget.
Goodness knows how it's going to play out if these tax rises are announced.
Mr. Trump, James Matthews from Sky News.
Hey, James.
Did you stay at the apartment in Manhattan of Jeffrey Epstein?
I'm not answering any questions.
Are you an appeaser for Putin?
I think that I really don't care what David Cameron has to say.
Mr. Patel, did you endanger public safety when you said the killer was in custody? Does your past behaviour make you unfit to serve? I'm James Matthews, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C.
I'm Tom Cheshire, Sky's data and forensics correspondent. Sky News has been given exclusive data. We combine traditional reporting with advanced analysis of satellite images, social media, and other open source information.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks. If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
Welcome back. You're watching the press preview with me in the studio, Alex Dean and Zoe Williams. Right, let's go straight to a story that we have been talking about quite a lot. The budget, finally here, well, not here yet, but soon, next week. Here is pages 6 and 7 of the Times. Budget will be last throw of the dice for the Chancellor. And she also gave an interview. Zoe, I mean, there's been so much confusion. We've been talking about it for so long. Where do you think she stands now?
So basically, it was only 2 weeks ago, although it feels like 2 years ago, that she called that peculiar meeting that was meant to signal to everybody that this was something of an emergency budget because it was an 8 a.m. meeting outside Downing, an 8 a.m. press conference outside Downing Street, basically saying a version, a kind of more intense version of what she's been saying since they came into government, which is that everything's so bad. Once they popped the bonnet, everything looked so bad that all bets were off. So, you know, what does all bets are off mean? Does it mean that they're going to break their promise of no taxes? Does it mean that they're going to go back for another bite at welfare, which they've already lost their own party over? Does it mean they're going to do both those things? It's impossible to tell where their allies would come from if they did that. Or does it mean, you know, it could conceivably mean anything. I think it's really unlikely that it means they're going to do anything with the triple lock. I think it's really unlikely that it means they're going to do anything with council tax. But other than that, she doesn't really give anybody a sense of where she's going, except to say it's an emergency and everything's really bad. Now, I think that was such a kind of catastrophic miscalculation because it doesn't really give anybody time or knowledge to line up in support of her if they're one of the constituencies that she isn't going to go after.
And how willing would you be to do the defence if you think the government's then going to reverse, which they've done on all manner of things? They've sent out their troops to defend their line and then changed the line, leaving those people looking foolish. Let's remember, the Labour Party has an enormous majority and is still in the early days of this government. If they held firm, they would be able to get their agenda through. Instead, we're now facing speculation about the Chancellor, the Prime Minister himself, and potentially Andy Burnham returning to Parliament and being a rival to him. And there's plenty of stuff on the insides this weekend about difficulties in government, not least because they've done the budget so late, they've given everyone lots and lots of time to get themselves into a panic, to worry about the ramifications, to look at the polls and say this polling that our government is in trouble is down to the budget, and therefore we need to have our special pleading. Number 10 has been doing some outreach, trying to reassure members of Parliament. To state plainly from the papers this weekend, it ain't working. Yeah. People are briefing off in every direction.
And when they left, when they pushed it this close to the wire, everybody said, and this was, what was it, 6 weeks ago that we learned the date of the budget, and everybody was saying it's going to be too close to Christmas, it's going to be the Christmas Grinch budget, and I was thinking 26th of November is not that close to Christmas, but it is.
There's Christmas trees all around us. Yeah, we're going to have to move on, but obviously, we'll find out on Wednesday. If we look at the front page of The Sun, interesting story. Sarah Ferguson there, considering an offer for a tell-all TV interview, obviously, Zoe, about Jeffrey Epstein and her ex-husband.
But this is just extraordinary. I was just thinking, what would the pre-meetings about this be like? What would they be saying to her that she had to reveal in order to sing for her supper? And where would she be able to draw her lines in the sand? It's like a six-figure sum to watch Sarah Ferguson do anything is an astronomically large amount of money.
She could confirm what has been said about how the Epstein introduction to the royal family came, because Ghislaine Maxwell claims it was via her. Right? She says that actually it wasn't the Prince and Epstein that were particularly close at the beginning. Fergie did the introduction. Now, if she said that is true, and I'll explain why, that'd be interesting watching.
I mean, but she would be under a lot of pressure, right?
For sure.
To say whether...
For that kind of money. OK, let's end on a nice story, a seasonal story. Daily Star. 12 days off at Christmas. So this is a lovely boss, Zoe. Tell us why.
OK, so Sean Reddington is the boss of a company called Thrive, which makes educational resources for children. That is completely separate because he just sounds like a nice guy who wants his staff to take enough time off over Christmas that they can go to their kids' nativity play. Now, what he doesn't realise, surely, is how many of us were using work as an excuse not to go.
And so that is my theory about how this story came about. Not that it's earned me...
Are you going to be cynical?
No, I believe that someone at the company has thought, oh, Sam, I'm leaking this to the press.
Oh, that's not true.
They're so long.
If I have to sit through one more.
No, yeah, but my little boy is no longer little enough to be in the nativity.
Yeah. No, I know. So. I miss seeing my daughter as a reindeer, but that was like minute 27 of 300.
OK, well done him. Zoe, Alex, thank you so much. Stay with us. We'll go through more of the papers and the top stories at 11 o'clock. Now, he'll have to like it. Donald Trump puts more pressure on President Zelensky to accept a Ukraine peace proposal that favors Russia. We'll have all the latest details on that peace plan that Donald Trump has proposed to Volodymyr Zelensky at the top of the hour. Stay with us.